Truth.
Only one truth.
With consequences.
And that's the truth that I know.
It's time to answer. Bash of the Beach 2000.
Many stories.
Brawl for all.
Definitely having second thoughts.
David Arquette is world champion.
Publicity.
Hear the real story behind the scenes of wrestling's biggest moments. The Montreal Screwjob.
Only one person, and that was me.
Vince Russo's Truth with Consequences.
Over 25 years of abuse.
With Matt Coon. And welcome to Truth with Consequences. I'm Matt Coon, and I'm here with the star of the show, Vince Russo. Vince, we had our first episode last week, and I think we had some good feedback. What did you think of the show last week?
Well, Matt, I got to say, it's a shame that this show's not on video, because when you welcomed everybody, you had such a smile on your face, like you were so happy to be here. Not many people are happy to be around me, Matt, so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the glow. And I appreciate that. I was very happy with last week's show, man. And, you know, Matt, again, not to blow smoke. I'm not one to blow smoke. I give credit where credit is due. You have a way of getting into things with me that nobody ever got into before. And I really appreciate that stuff, because we've heard the same stories over and over again. There's so much that hasn't been covered. And that's why I was excited to do the show this weekend. And I really, really enjoyed our conversation last week.
Yeah, I did too as well. Some criticism I got was that I didn't push you enough on answers. But I'm going to tell people this real quick, is that if I'm just going to be me, so if I feel there's something that I have a question about or I'm going to push back about, I definitely will. But pushing back for the sake of pushing back doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And Matt, you and I have had this conversation before. I mean, the whole idea of that is like just absolutely ridiculous. I wrote a television show, and you interview me. You could ask me whatever you want about my career, my experiences, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I mean, I just don't know what I possibly have to hide.
Well, I think what people refer to is they think, you know, you're full of shit, or you're lying, or you're not facing the facts. And there's a couple things about that. Is one is, if I feel that's the case, I'm going to say something, because I have nothing to lose. Otherwise, there's no show. And if I feel like you're telling the truth, or you believe you're telling the truth, or it's your truth or your reality, there's nothing to do but kind of maybe listen and kind of drop our judgment machines for a second and just listen to what's being said, because a lot of this stuff we're hearing for the first time.
Go back to, I don't understand exactly what it is I'm lying about. You know, I mean, when you have things to hide, you'll lie. But that's the thing that boggles my mind all the time. It's like, what do I have to lie about that an idea was or wasn't mine? It's ludicrous to me.
And that's a great question. If you think, you know, that Vince Russo is not telling the truth, is Vince Russo is lying, go ahead and hit us up on our Twitter at RussoCoonTWC. But don't tell us what the lie is. Tell us why. You know, it's something I teach my son. People say things, but why are they saying it? And maybe when you examine that, you might come to some bigger truths, or maybe you'll come up with something that we haven't heard before. But I will say this, is that we want to thank all of our Patreon members over at patreon.com/Truth with Consequences. We put up a lot of extras this week. We're going to keep doing that. We also have Instagram is at RussoCoonTWC.
And I want to remind you guys too, if you like this show, bro, we got a whole network of shows. Guys, go over to the Realm Network. We do 5 shows a week, bro. I got a different co-host every week. Big Vito LaGrasso, Goldilocks from TNA, Ben Hameen, Stevie Richards, Disco Inferno. Bro, it's less than $1 a week. You can opt out at any time, bro. Just go to russosbrand.com. Give the show a sampling. Like I said, bro, it's $3.95 a month. If you don't like it, you can opt out. But if you like this show, and I think you're listening to this show because you like it, you'll definitely like what's over there as well.
Things are going, Vince, and things are going to keep going this week as we talk about Hulk Hogan in TNA. Now, this is something you told me we need to go back to the beginning. It's something you say a lot when we talk about things. What do you mean, go back to the beginning? Where's the beginning of Hulk Hogan?
Here is the beginning. You got to go all the way back to TNA when there were after show parties that I never attended. I'm not a drinker. I'm not a whatever they were doing at those parties. I went right to bed after the show.
I'll interrupt you real quick. Is that one of your issues, is that you didn't really do the hang thing? You didn't really do the drinking thing? You didn't really do the partying thing? And a lot of relationships are created in those situations?
Maybe, but on the other side of that coin, Matt, like, that was my that was the way I handled myself for so long, and I worked with a lot of the same people from WWE to WCW to TNA, and like they knew. I mean, they just knew that's how I was. So like I don't really think that was held against me, but I never went. Once in a while, bro. Like at TNA, we had a fantasy football league. Once in a while, I would go down Monday nights to watch the football game. Stuff like that. But I never drank. I never did anything like that.
Were you in the fantasy football league at TNA?
Yeah, I was in the fantasy football league for many years. Oh my God, it was Jeff's league, Jeff Jarrett's league, and he used to cheat all the freaking time. I was in it. Jeff Jarrett was in it. I mean, Abyss was in it for many years. James Storm was in it for many years. Eric Young was a big time player. We all took it very, very serious. Rudy Charles, we all took it very seriously.
So you can just turn the show off right now, because I think we have our big story. I think that's fascinating to me. The TNA Fantasy Football League with Abyss and Eric Young and James Storm and Vince Russo and Jeff Jarrett and Rudy Charles. It sounds like a good
and not
time.
only that, I mean, and Jeff did cheat. Like there were rules like the draft had to be at Jeff's house, and because he hosted the draft, which he made us go to his house. Well, that gave him the number one pick. Then he would literally have consultants at the draft. I mean, guys,
he's one of those guys. He would have guys there helping him out.
Oh, yeah, because Jeff knows everybody in Hendersonville. So He would have, the local radio guys. He would literally have guys there drafting his freaking team. And this was a yearly ritual. And quite honestly, it was the best time of the year.
That's hilarious. Hey, so going back to these parties that you used to have, what about these parties sets up the whole Hulk Hogan thing?
Yeah. They used to have these parties. Jeff, had a reputation of always being the last one at the party. Karen Angle liked to have a good time. Okay. Kurt Angle was a professional. And when Kurt would do the show, Kurt would want to go back to the room and go to bed.
This is when Kurt and Karen were still married.
They were still married. So a lot of times Jeff and Karen were the last two closing the party down while Kurt Angle was sound asleep. And that's how the relationship began. You got to understand, at that time, Jeff's in charge of creative. Dixie's handling the business end of it. No matter what people think, I'm working for Jeff. I'm reporting to Jeff. Jeff was at that point 100% in charge of creative.
Of course, they're all in a much better place now. Kurt Angle remarried and Jeff working through his much publicized rehab of last year, and now just the busiest, hardest working guy on earth. But back then it was a different story. And how does this relate to Hulk Hogan?
Rumors start spreading. And, Kurt's getting a hold of these rumors, and who knows what the conversations were between him and Karen. Who knows if Karen ever owned up to it? I don't know. All I do know is there was a night in Orlando where, it must have been 11, 12 o'clock at night. I got a call from Jeff Jarrett, and I mean, he literally, like, his voice was quivering. And he was like, need to talk to you. You got to come up here. Wow. And I went up to Jeff's room, and evidently right before I went up there, Kurt Angle more or less made his way in Jeff's room. And Jeff was in a hotel room with a very irate and upset Kurt Angle. I give Kurt Angle right there all the credit in the world for keeping his cool. But he sent a message to Jeff, brother, I know what's going on. And, I know Jeff at that point denied it, but like Kurt knew it was going on. So, Jeff called me up to the room. Jeff told me what happened that night. There were all kinds of meetings because Kurt wanted to quit. So I know he met with Dean Broadhead. I know he met with Dixie Carter. But eventually they talked Kurt down and he stayed with the company.
This is a huge deal. This kind of thing could absolutely destroy a company.
Absolutely. No, and it was destroying a company. I don't know. It's none of my business. I don't want to have anything to do with that. Of course, it's a tough position for me. I'm working for Jeff. Jeff's my friend of, 20 years. I'm very good friends with Kurt, probably my best friend on the roster. Very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, I love Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett is great personally. And also Kurt Angle.
Yes.
I've had great interactions with Kurt Angle. But when you get pissing off Kurt Angle, I mean, this is a guy in a shoot.
Forget it.
Might be the one in wrestling history.
To give Jeff his due, Jeff's the tough guy. Jeff will give you a beating. This is dangerous because if something physical would have broke out, it would have been over right then and there.
So Jeff calls you up. He's shaken. He's let you know that Kurt Angle has let him know that he knows the deal at the very least.
Not that he knows the deal. It was almost like he was accusing Jeff. So Jeff was still not owning up to this.
He had owned it. He was owning it up to you at the time?
No, never. I didn't want to know. Me and Jeff never, ever, ever discussed it, ever.
But when he brings you up to the room, what's the purpose in bringing you to the room, saying shit's about to go down? Or
Matt, I think he just really needed to talk to somebody. I think he was that freaking shaken, and this thing now had really, really gotten out of hand.
So what's the fallout from that?
Kurt meets with everybody that night. Kurt stays. Dixie's irate. And Jeff now gives Dixie his word. There's nothing going on between me and Karen. There never was anything going on. It's all in Kurt's head. There is nothing going on with me and Karen Angle.
To be honest, there's no perfect way to do this.
I think there is a perfect way to do this, Matt. I think you got to come clean.
You think so?
I mean, when they say the truth will set you free, that's the only way. At that point, for Jeff to say, yes, I'm guilty. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. But on the other side of that coin, Matt, if Jeff and Karen are in love, Jeff and Karen are in love.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, this, obviously this wasn't a one-night
right.
deal.
They have a family.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. With Dixie, it seems that, people give her a line and tell her things, but it seems for the most part, she believes what she wants to believe. And it seems like she's not a very hard person to fool. Is that accurate?
Not at all. Not at all. And that's going to come into play later.
So she tells Dixie Carter, there's nothing
Jeff
going
Swift,
on.
nothing going on. I'll never forget. I got up early in the morning, and I had time to kill. I was at Walmart, and I was looking at the action figures at about 8:00 in the morning. I get this call, and it's Dixie. Okay, I never heard her like this in my life. Why the F didn't you tell me? You made me look like an effing moron. You're supposed to have my effing back. Wow. I thought I could trust you. I mean, like, I could not get a word in edgeways. Matt, I did not know what she was talking about. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, evidently, Jeff had a party at his house, and he invited Dixie Carter to the party. So now Dixie walks into this party, and Jeff and Karen are hosting this party like they're a married couple.
Do you think that was purposeful? Like, this is how we tell Dixie?
It had to be, Matt. It had to be. It had to be because, I was going to say nobody's that stupid. Jeff Jarrett's not stupid. So no doubt, no doubt. I don't know if they thought the mask would be, under the guise of a party. All these people there, but, they were clearly hosting the party together. And
Dixie is infuriated, not
just
because
God.
It's not good for the company, but because she feels betrayed and lied to, not just by Jeff Jarrett, but in this case, she felt that way, even though it was untrue about you.
What probably upset her more than anything else is she felt like she was made to look stupid in front of everybody. In other words, Matt, when she went to this party and Jeff's closest friends were there, they all knew. And she walks into this party completely blindsided. So knowing Dixie, the one thing that upset her the most was her looking stupid.
I think for the most part, people have this perception of her that she was played by like a sucker for a lot of the time, just because she's naive and she trusts people. But in this case, she took it personally, it sounds like.
Very personal. You know, this is Jeff. He set the precedent early on that even though Dixie Carter and the Carter family money was running the business, Jeff made it a point early on to make Dixie feel inferior. He made her feel very, very inept and very, very paranoid and very stupid when it came to the business, because he did not want her getting involved with his side of it. She had a complex of being afraid to speak up, being afraid to give her own opinions, being afraid she was going to say something that was stupid and she was going to be laughed at.
Like you said, to meet Jeff Jarrett is to like Jeff Jarrett. And a lot of these habits or a lot of these tendencies he has business-wise are born out of the old school wrestling.
Absolutely.
Philosophy.
Yeah.
So in that context, let me ask you this. Using the old school wrestling philosophy, is Dixie Carter the ultimate money mark?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dutch and I would plead, bro, throw her a freaking bone. No, he would never throw her a bone. That was the way she was from the beginning, which really, really, really explains a lot of her history as we look at the 10, 12 years of TNA.
So what's the fallout from the party and her being upset?
They send Jeff home. He is done. He is done. And the conversations with me.
Dixie and her family?
No, Dixie and Dean Broadhead, who was like
he's like a COO kind of?
Yeah. I think he's still there to this day, to be honest. I don't know. So now, Matt, Jeff's gone. To get back at Jeff, what do you think Dixie does?
Dixie feels the need to get back at Jeff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The first two people she sends home are Dutch Mantell and Jim Cornette. She was so freaking upset and irate with freaking Jeff. Those guys were there because they were Jeff's guys. Dixie Carter would not have hired Dutch Mantell and a Jim Cornette if there was no Jeff Jarrett. So now the only ones left are me and Matt Conway. Matt Conway was an intern that started at TNA. Dixie more or less put Conway on the creative team as her spy. All right. So, Matt Conway would go back and tell Dixie everything that was going on. Now, up until this point, how many times is Jeff Jarrett champion? How long is Jeff Jarrett champion? And
that was the big knock on TNA, was that Jeff booked himself on top and Jeff was
you know what? I can't blame him for that, because the psychology that Jeff is thinking about at that time is, this is my company, this is my ass, this is my livelihood. Nobody's going to do it better than me. And I get that. He should think that way.
And also there's a long-standing criticism of guys booking themselves on top, but people forget that the tradition of booking yourself on top, whether it be Dusty or Vern or whoever, it goes along with booking yourself to make the most money. And if you're in a position to make the most money, how many of us are human enough to avoid that temptation?
And I get it. I get all that. Now that Jeff was gone, there were going to be no veterans that were going to be able to go to Dixie Carter behind my back and bury me, because the veteran was Jeff Jarrett.
Where was Kurt's spirit as this time? I can imagine going through something with Karen and Jeff. There must have been, how was he during that time? How was he to be around? What was the reaction of the other guys in the locker room? What was that scene like before Hogan came in?
It was horrible. It was horrible. And he would never publicly cause a scene. Remember I told you he went up in Jarrett's room? He could have done that in front. He could have embarrassed Jeff in front of the entire. What would Jeff have done? Jeff's a tough guy, bro. Jeff would kick my ass, and Jeff did kick my ass at one point. Kurt could have made a scene in front of the entire locker room. That's not what Kurt did. Like a man, he handled that behind closed doors, one-on-one. Now, bro, there were times, very few times, where I know Kurt would reach a boiling point. He would get me to the side and he would get it out. But again, Matt, it just goes back to, you talk about professional. Bro, if that were anybody else, that situation would have been 1,000 times worse if it were anybody else.
So you start pushing the younger guys. AJ, of course, to all of us watching, AJ is the guy because, we're wrestling fans. What else took place that led to Hulk Hogan coming in?
This is about 6 weeks. I can remember phone calls from her every single day questioning everything. And here's why. Because she finally had a guy that wasn't going to cut promos on her. Yeah, she finally had a guy that wasn't going to say, Dixie, shut the F up. You don't know what you're talking about.
Of course, like a producer on a movie, they feel that, we put the money in, we think we're creative, we have the right to stick in our creative ideas. She's calling you every day with ideas. And what kind of ideas is she coming up with?
She was such, hurt goods that she had zero confidence in her opinions, her thoughts on wrestling. This is where she, with Jeff gone now she had to really start relying on other people.
So 6 weeks of pushing these young guys and Dixie calling you every day. What does that look like towards the end of it?
Now, basically what it was, Matt, holy shit, I'm running a wrestling company without Jeff Jarrett. Guess who her first phone call is to? JR. She comes to me with this. Okay? I say, Dixie, great idea. Great freaking idea. If you could get JR in here as the general manager, great idea. I honestly don't think you could get a better person in here.
Of course, we're talking about Jim Ross. Where was he at the time with his contract situation or his relationship with WWE?
It was non-existent, Matt, because I do know JR went up to the Carter compound. They fell in love with JR.
What a great choice he would be for a on-camera authority figure.
It would. No. I'm talking about as a shoot.
Oh, really?
I'm talking about running the company.
Wow.
I'm talking about replacing Jeff and running the company. That's what I'm talking about. No, there was not even a discussion of him on TV. I'm talking about behind the scenes running the company.
Seems like a natural fit. What to your knowledge, what was the reason that didn't happen?
I got on the phone. I talked to JR for about 3 hours. we had a great talk, me and JR. Next thing I know, bro, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. Now, it could have been one of two things. Number one, it could have been money. Okay. And number two, I know part of Jim's deal was I want 100% control. I think Jim Ross's relationship that he formed with the parents might have scared Dixie a little bit. Dixie loved, even though she was not fit for the job, Dixie loved being the person in charge. She loved being the lady that everybody's ass was kissing. She loved that role. So either it was a money issue or she viewed it as a loss of her power and may have talked her parents out of it. I don't know exactly what it was.
So JR is now out. It was a great idea that didn't, that even led to a phone call with you. That's something I don't know. I don't think a lot of people at home know.
Yeah, great phone call. It was a great phone call with Jim.
And now we have no JR. So what's the next big idea?
Little do I know, when the JR thing falls through, Dixie's in touch with Hulk Hogan. Now, of course, she's not going to tell me about that because she knows now there's a history with me and Hulk Hogan. And Matt, I swear to you, if she would have told me about Hulk Hogan, I would have said, okay, Dixie, these are the pluses, these are the minuses. And Matt, I know this is going longer, but the reason I'm talking about this stuff is I've never talked about it. Guess who comes to visit one day at Universal Studios in Orlando? Hulk Hogan.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
And he can't sneak in, it's Hogan.
I'll never forget this, bro, because it was almost a laugh in her face because I couldn't help myself. They put Hulk Hogan in the green room. Okay, bro. The green room was used for like Sting, and Kurt and Flair. You know what I mean? They used the green room. Hogan comes to Universal Studios. They put Hogan in the green room. Okay, Matt, I am there front and center. the first time Dixie Carter is about to meet Hulk Hogan. Matt, she's red in the face.
Oh boy.
She's shaking. She can barely talk. She asked about 18 times how her hair looked. Matt, I can't even I can't even describe that to so-and-so meeting so-and-so. And here's what I'm thinking, Matt. I swear to God, you're the head of this company. You got Hulk Hogan in that room, and Hulk Hogan's game plan is going to be to get your money. Now, when I saw the Dixie that was walking into that room.
Just ring the bell. It's over. It's over. Hulk
Matt, I was like, bro, you talk about Hogan being like the lion in the cage, right, and here comes that 50-ounce steak. Right. I was like, bro, like, forget about it. So that preceded the serious negotiations with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I'm sure. So real quick though, in that moment, that day, did you have chance to meet, talk to, shake hands with Hulk Hogan?
No, didn't even see him. I never even saw him. Didn't even see him. I just knew he was in the green room.
Wow. And so you saw Dixie that day. You saw not only was she over the top with how excited she was, but she was selling it 1,000%.
Oh, Matt, I'm telling you, I've been to a lot of wrestling conventions. I can't imagine who I could possibly meet at this point in my life. I can't even and act that way. I can't imagine. When it happened, it was this. I felt like it was the same thing to me all over again at WCW. Brad Siegel put Eric Bischoff and myself together. Neither one of us had a choice. Dixie was now putting me and Eric Bischoff, in some aspect together again. What am I going to do, bro? Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to tell Dixie? Oh, I'm going to quit if you hire Eric? No, what am I going to do? I've got to work within this framework, and I have to make this work. And bro, there was a long period of time before Hulk was going to appear on TV, and like there was like maybe a 2-3 month span, and like the entire show was supposed to be about Hulk Hogan without Hulk Hogan on the show. And Eric Bischoff was immediately put into the meeting with me and Conway. It was me, Conway, and Bischoff. I think Ed was working with us at that time. He was immediately put into those meetings. Bro, I didn't get along with him at WCW. Ed Ferrara did not like Eric. And, Dixie, she had to know the history. But, again, such a mark for Hogan that they're now working for the company. Bro, one of the greatest things that nobody knows about. When Hogan is hired, Dixie has a company-wide meeting. She makes everybody that works for TNA, if you're a guy, you have to grow your best Fu Manchu. And if you're a girl, you've got to put on a fake Fu Manchu. She had everybody in that office come to a meeting after Hogan was announced with the Hulk Hogan bleach blonde Fu Manchu. Everybody. One guy, her right-hand man, bro. The only guy, her right-hand man, the only guy who's told her, like, I'm Dixie, I'm not doing that. Wow. There are pictures. I mean, pictures are out there. I mean, I guarantee you, if I contacted Jeremy Borash right now, I could get a picture of that, because whoever was in there sent me a picture immediately. They were like, Vince, you're literally not going to believe this. So, I mean, pictures are out there of the entire staff looking like Hulk Hogan. So the first thing is, bro, the first time I'm meeting Eric again, she makes me fly to freaking New York. That morning, she makes me sit down, me, her, and Eric for breakfast. It was WCW all over again. The same freaking arrogant Eric. The same Eric who knew everything, the same Eric, talking down to me, the same Eric talking down to Dixie. And I'm like, how is this going to work? This was the guy that I could not from a personal standpoint, I could not work with him at WCW. We're oil and water, bro. And how am I going to do this? We go to the Spike meeting that day. I'm in this freaking Spike meeting. Remember when I almost went back to the WWE in 2002? Remember that?
Yep.
Hogan was working there in 2002. Okay? So I had to address the Hogan situation with Vince McMahon. And I said, Vince, listen, the last time Hulk Hogan were in the same place together, things did not turn out that well. You know, I was sued, you know, the whole 9 yards. Vince, how are you going to handle this? Vince McMahon looked at me and said, Vince, I don't give a shit about Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is not drawing me a dime. I will take care of it. And that was it. That was all we spoke about it. That was it.
And this was 2002.
2002.
And we're here many years later.
You would have thought Jesus Christ himself just signed with TNA. Hogan's not at the meeting. Only Bischoff, you know. So, you know, Bischoff, the PR guy, Hogan's the Beatles, Hogan's Jesus. I mean, what am I thinking in my head? I'm thinking of what Vince McMahon said to me. Right. I'm thinking to myself, guys, in 2002, Vince McMahon told me Hulk Hogan was not drawing him a dime. Like, what, bro, I swear to God, they literally thought the acquisition of Hulk Hogan was going to catapult them over WWE. They honestly, and as they shoot in that room that day, believe that.
And here's the thing with that too, is that Hulk Hogan is well past his wrestling years. He's being brought in as a personality, as a face of the company, but also as a creative force that's kind of, you know, in charge of how everything's going to go. And that's not something he's necessarily known for. So he brings in Eric Bischoff. They were thinking just the very presence of Hulk Hogan, just the very presence of him, or
just the name, just tying that name to the product. Hulk Hogan was now literally going to teach Dixie Carter about the wrestling business, the combination of Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. And the first thing was we're going to go Monday nights head to head with Raw.
And that was the big idea.
This is why I got an issue with Eric. Here's the first obvious thing. TNA does not have the finances alone to go head to head with the WWE. They're going to see Raw. They're going to switch over. They're going to see this rinky-dink show at Universal Studios. This isn't your turning off of Raw and going to turn as WCW. That's not what you're seeing, bro. You're seeing WWE and then you're seeing TNA. But they were convinced we were going to beat Raw.
And, you know, we all know how that turned out. Let's take a step back real quick. It seems odd to me that Hulk Hogan comes in, Eric Bischoff comes in, and Vince Russo stays. So what do you think the mechanisms were like in that Dixie went to bat for you?
I have to give her the credit up until that point where, no, I was not fired. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, I don't know why I didn't quit. She needed me, and no matter whether she wanted to admit it or not, she knew she needed me. She knew I brought like a foundation and a steadiness. And, you know, she knew I brought all these things that these guys didn't. I don't know why I didn't quit at the time. Like, I don't know. I'm sitting here now and I'm like, bro, like, why would you have put yourself through that again?
So were you told, you know, hey, you work for Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff now?
Never. Dixie was always, we're all going to work together. So everybody's going to work together.
We're all on the same team. We're going to work together for this goal.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, being quiet and towing the line isn't really something you're known for, but yet that's what you were doing at this point, which kind of tells me that you knew what your place was at this point in time. Even though Dixie went to bat for you, you knew that for you to do your job, you probably had to go along with the Bischoff and Hogan thing.
Yeah, and Matt, I don't know why I didn't leave. I can't even tell you like why I didn't leave.
Was there a part of you even with all the, fanboying, fangirling by Dixie and, your history with Bischoff and your history with Hogan, was there a part of you that thought, well, maybe if Hogan and Bischoff and Russo get on the same page, we can make a run at this thing?
No, Matt, I really believe, I think there was a big part of me that wanted to make it right with Hulk. Because, I mean, bro, let's face it, Matt, he was really the reason I was even in the business in the first place. You know what I'm saying? And I owed everything to him of what he meant to the business. I did not want to have a freaking bad relationship with him because, Eric's over there freaking stirring the pot. So I think it was important for me to make it right with Hulk.
When was your first face-to-face talk with Hulk Hogan when he returned?
Eric Bischoff set that up in a hotel in Florida, and it was me, Eric, and Hulk. This was the last scene we left in the trailer at Bash at the Beach.
Right, the three of you,
yes,
arguing or discussing the finish, and you trying to get with Hulk, and Eric being the way, and also Hulk wanting to do things his way. And now, many years later, it's a three of you again.
So again, I'm going in there in a 2-on-1 again. Nobody's with me. It's just me. I got to tell you, Hulk made it as easy as possible. Hulk was I don't know about Eric. As a shoot. Hulk Hogan really wanted to turn TNA around. He really did. I guess at that point they did the stuff at WWE and it wasn't really over and he was Mr. America under the mask or whatever. And I don't know if this was his way of showing Vince McMahon, but I'm not going to speak for Eric. Okay? I am going to tell you, no matter how much money Hulk Hogan got, and I don't know how much he got, his intentions were right. He really, 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 really wanted to make this work and really thought he could do everything that the people at Spike thought he could do.
It's also fair to say that Bischoff's motivations probably were the same because, Bischoff, like yourself and also Hogan, is motivated by success, and Bischoff more so others motivated by success and money. So I think it's fair to say that maybe, they both wanted TNA to turn around, and maybe they both thought that you could be a part of it.
I agree with that. Hulk made that meeting as easy as he possibly could make it, and when we walked out of that meeting, everything was cool.
Do you remember just first laying eyes on him and saying, hey, good to see you again, Hulk? Or I guess most importantly, was there any talk at all about the lawsuit or Bash of the Beach or any of that?
I can't tell you the specifics of the conversation, but I could tell you he was a 100% gentleman, made it very, very, very easy. Another person might not have made it so easy.
From there, we get to the point now where we're creating content. We're deciding what goes into TNA now. You said we're going to go up Monday nights. That's the plan. But first, we need to start having a show. Hulk Hogan needs to come out. And Hulk Hogan starts bringing in some other people. This is the opposite of what you were doing before, building the young guys. How did you feel when you started seeing a lot of these other guys coming in and the plans for bringing people in as the answer to turning TNA around?
Things did not get off to a good start because I remember it's like one by one, Eric and Hulk, we got to bring in Jeff Hardy. We got to bring in.
Can I tell you what did it for me as a fan watching? Because
Rob Van Dam, what I mean? But go ahead. Yeah.
Those two sound like great ideas. I don't know what the money involved in all that, but as a fan, giving TNA a chance under the Hulk Hogan regime, not just because it's Hulk Hogan, because you always want a second company and you feel like you want to give them a chance. And, they've had a lot of reboots and a lot of us have been along for a lot of them. But for me, the moment I saw the Nasty Boys on TV,
that's what I was just getting to.
And so with those guys, and don't sleep on the Nasty Boys. They had a great career and some very underrated matches with the Steiners and the Legion of Doom. It's no knock on them, but at this time and point, as a wrestling fan, you go, oh, Jeff Hardy, Rob Van Dam, the Nasty Boys.
This is a philosophy I don't agree with. That was the first blow up in the creative meeting.
Was it about the Nasties?
Yes. And guess who it was between?
Hogan and you?
Bischoff and Ferrara. Ed Ferrara.
This is the best.
Ed Ferrara.
Because they're both almost the seconds. Like, Bischoff is Hogan's second, Ferrara's your second. You and Hogan aren't getting into it, so the lieutenants are going crazy on each other.
It's like, so Ferrara was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, seriously? And there's Eric standing up for the Nasty Boys. But Eric feels the same exact way we do. And Eric only wants to bring in the Nasty, only is standing up and fighting for the Nasty Boys because it's what Hulk wants, and Hulk is his meal ticket and his gravy train. And we all know that. Like, we all know that in the meeting. And what we're basically saying is, come on, Eric. Like, this sucks, bro. Like, can you not talk to him and tell him maybe this is we didn't say that, but that's what we were saying.
So you're sitting with your arms folded. Hogan's sitting with his arms folded.
No, Hogan's not there.
Oh, Hogan's not there, but Bischoff and Ferrara. What points was Bischoff making? Was he saying these are the kind of people we need to bring in, or was he saying the Nasty Boys will pop a rating? What was the argument for bringing in the Nasties?
There really wasn't any. This right here is foreshadowing the ultimate destruction between my relationship with Eric Bischoff that continues on to this day. We know you don't want the Nasty Boys in here just as much as we don't. Bro, Hogan's your gravy train. You're always gonna attach, your wagons to Hulk. But we know this is not the best thing for the show. We got nothing. Freaking Knobs is a great guy. Knobs is one of the greatest guys. This ain't a freaking personal. This is not good for the show.
And it's funny for me as a fan watching, and we didn't talk about this beforehand. The Nasties were a tipping point for me, where I go, just a few months previously, I saw Hogan Knows Best with Knobs lounging around in Hogan's pool and being around a lot, so they're close. And of course you can't, it doesn't make Hogan a bad guy because he takes care of his friends. Who doesn't want to take care of your friends? But at the same point, that was a tipping point for a lot of fans where you said, it's just going to be the cronies. It's just going to be when's Beefcake showing up. Like, what was your relationship or what was your feeling as you're writing TV and now you're working with a lot of the same situations when Hogan first got to WCW where you start.
See, Matt, that's where I have a disagreement. I'm all for the friend loyalty thing. But at the end of the day, it's business, and you should be doing what's best for business, what's best for the company. You know how many people are mad to me to this day that I never got them a job? You say Hogan's a great guy and you want to give all his friends a job. That's true, but you got to be loyal to your employer.
He's taking care of his friends, but it's not something that helped the company.
Here and an idea there, that's where the dissension starts. Because it's either like, get in the trenches with us or get the F out.
Isn't that just like working with any boss or any supervisor where they do the broad strokes and you have to do the real work, and that's just the way it works. I mean, it doesn't have to build dissension if there's a hierarchy.
Not when the guy with the broad strokes is a total jackass. Mike, I'll give you a perfect example.
Sure, go ahead.
He would. His concern is, and rightfully so, what's Hogan doing? Okay, well, he did not present that. That was his priority. What's Hogan doing? So, like, okay, here's the idea for Hogan. Eric, we'll go right the other hour and 45 minutes of the show. Here's the arrogance of freaking Eric Bischoff. Ed Ferrara was a hired writer in Hollywood, bro. He taught me so freaking much. So now, bro, here's the arrogance of Eric, and this is how the dissension starts. We'd write the show. We then would have to send the completed show to Eric, just like me and Ed sent the completed show to Vince before we went to Orlando over the weekend.
That's not unlike the way Vince would do it, right?
No, yeah, absolutely not unlike. No.
Okay, so you send them in, and then
what do you think we get back, bro?
A bunch of red marks and notes.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. And here's my biggest pet peeve. Bro, don't freaking red mark our shit and tell us our shit sucks when you don't have one single suggestion of making it better. I learned that early on, bro, with Vince. I could never tell Vince something wasn't good unless I had something freaking better. I was trained that way. This was his show of power. What he would do, red line everything, send it back to us with not one suggestion, not one way how he thought we could do it better. Then we'd all have to sit there with our thumbs up our ass waiting till he was available for us to talk to him.
So you're left, instead of creating something, you're left wondering how I can make this guy happy so that he approves the script. And also, you don't really know where to go, and you're having to wait for him to get details on it so that you don't send him a second script that gets read.
Right. And we're working against the clock. That freaking prick, you know, these go-to meetings, he made me and Ed have one with him on Christmas Eve. Ed was ready to quit because, bro, we were trying to meet with him days and days beforehand. He was too busy with whatever other deals he had. And then on Christmas Eve, he wants to do a go-to meeting with us. This is what we were dealing with all the time.
So it sounds like there's a couple things here. One is, of course, if you're going to say this idea sucks, you better come with a better idea. And the second thing is, it didn't sound like he was respectful of your talent or your time. Yeah, that's a big one for you.
And not only that, Matt, you're constantly working against the clock because there's a show every week. This isn't we're working on a movie. We got a show in 2 days. Pick up the phone and freaking call us.
Where's Hogan in all this?
Where's he live? That's where he was. He's nowhere around during this.
So did Bischoff?
And here's another thing, Mac. I would stay at the Holiday Inn Express right in front of Vanderbilt University, bro. The Holiday Inn Express, a mile down the road.
Yeah.
Eric Bischoff is staying at the most expensive hotel in the freaking city.
On TNA's dime.
On TNA's dime. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, are you that special? Are you that great?
The difference between you guys is pretty easy to see. You're very different people. Bischoff runs things a different way, but he's kind of in charge because he gets to red mark your pages. At the end of the day, that first script for the first show, were you happy with the result?
I was happy with that show. I did feel, some of the guys on the show were past their prime. I mean, I did feel that way, but overall, I was happy with the show.
What did you think of the decision to bring in Ric Flair?
Flair's Flair, man. And Flair doesn't have to work. You know what I'm saying, bro? All Flair has to do is talk. So I was 100% on board to bringing him back. What
about the place of Abyss at the time? Hogan, on screen took Abyss under his wing, and it looked like maybe Abyss was going to get the Hogan dust on him a little bit, the Hulk dust. Where was Abyss's place? Who was behind this idea of pairing Hogan with Abyss?
That was a lot of that was Hulk, because I remember we're talking about the magic ring and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that was Hulk.
So would you get directives?
And that's the thing too. I gotta say one thing about Hulk, the reason Hulk was drawn to Abyss was because Abyss was genuinely a good guy. The fact that Hogan was drawn to Abyss, I mean, that tells you a lot. Maybe there was a part of Hulk Hogan that didn't want to be involved in such political shit at a high level, and kind of saw a guy like Abyss that, man, this guy loves the freaking business. Like, this guy would wrestle 24 hours a day, for free. And I think that was appealing to Hulk. I don't know, bro. Maybe that brought Hulk back to a time when he first started in the business.
It didn't take long for Hulk Hogan to start wrestling again. I don't know if he was promoted as being Hulk Hogan's coming back to wrestle, but it wasn't. I mean, it took him all the way until March. So we're talking about January 4th is the debut. March 18th was when Hogan wrestled with Abyss against Flair and I think AJ Styles. When Hogan came in, was it like Hogan's coming to wrestle?
No, bro. He always had such devastating back issues, bro. He was trying everything, not necessarily to work again, just to relieve the pain. So, I mean, for a long time, I think he was just getting to the point trying to get to that point.
So do you think Hulk Hogan, we talked last week on Truth with Consequences on the debut episode about you doing anything necessary to make your company work, so much so that you put yourself in harm's way. Is that what Hulk Hogan did, where he said, okay, brother, for this to work, I need to get in the ring?
I think so. I do think so, bro. And I can't tell you 100%, but I do think so.
How willing do you think Hogan gets a rap for, of course, putting himself over and burying people? And I'm not sure how fair that is, but how well do you think he did as far as working with young talent and getting the young talent over, as opposed to getting himself and his friends over while you were there?
I saw him make a concerted effort, but I also saw some decisions like that I didn't agree with, and I didn't think they would work. One bad experience was it was a big buildup, and the whole build was supposed to be Bobby Roode was supposed to beat Kurt Angle and become the TNA champion. And if you know Bobby Roode, you would put all your marbles in that basket. I can't say enough good things about Bobby Roode. Kurt Angle was all in. Bobby was getting so excited about it. I remember the night before, me and Matt Conway, we took Bobby Roode out to dinner, and Bobby was so excited about it. He worked so hard for this opportunity. We get into the production meeting that day. And all of a sudden, Hulk's sitting next to Dixie, and all of a sudden, Hulk brings up, one of his what ifs. And the what if was Bobby Roode does not win the title that night. So he's laying out a story, something about Roode shouldn't get the title, and James Storm was involved. I don't know what to sort. Me and Conway are looking at each other. We know Dixie's not going to disagree with Hogan. We know Dixie's not going to agree with Hogan, but again, I knew that was absolutely wrong. I knew we were on the right track. I knew we told a good story, and I'm like, and then there was an instant too, he wanted AJ to dye his hair blonde and be the second coming of Ric Flair.
Right.
I definitely did see him trying to help young talent.
What was Hogan and Bischoff's thoughts on James Storm at the time?
I think they were both. I think they were both fans of James Storm, as was I. I think they were big advocates of James Storm.
When you're seeing Hogan return to the ring, you're seeing more and more of a focus on Hogan on screen. What was the reaction? And let's just talk about a couple people. Sting, Sting's place in the company definitely changed. Sting definitely had a past relationship with Hulk. Sting's definitely a different kind of guy than Hulk, more along the lines of a Kurt Angle, where he didn't grow up with wrestling, but he was a veteran and he was the biggest name in TNA for a while. Where was Sting with this Hogan Bischoff?
Oh, bro, that was another battle I had right off the bat. I don't think this story has ever been told. When Bischoff and Hogan came aboard, Steve was going through a very, very, very tough divorce. Very tough divorce. The kids were involved, and Sting called me. And he goes, I'm having a huge issue, with my wife. I can't come to TV. When Sting is not like the rest. Sting is not going to miss TV unless there is an absolute problem that he can't come.
No one will ever say that Steve Borden is not a professional, correct?
Never, Matt. So I love Steve Borden with all my heart and soul, that I'm not even thinking about TV at this point. I'm like, Steve, whatever you want, bro. You do whatever you got to do. We'll figure it out. Eric wanted to fire Sting because he called at the last minute. He could not come to TV. He wanted to fire Sting to the point of, I knew there was an agenda there. Without missing a beat, the first place Eric Bischoff went to was we've got to get rid of Sting.
Your sense is that maybe he was looking for a reason.
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. And thank God in this case, Dixie felt as strongly about Steve Borden as I did. Are you, it was kind of like, are you kidding me moment, bro? You ain't going to work us into this one. This ain't happening.
Bischoff said, he needs to be fired. It's time for Sting to go. That's what Bischoff said?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something there with Hogan. Maybe there was something there with Bischoff, but Sting, deserved better, not just for his career, but for what he had done for TNA, correct?
Oh, no doubt, bro. Again, that's why I had that whole problem with Hogan. You know, he showed up an hour before the show, which I felt was a total disrespect to Sting and Kurt Angle. But Steve Borden, man, like there are just some people that like they're in the wrong business. No matter what. And with all this shit going on with Eric and with all this shit going on with Bischoff and stuff, bro, he would never say anything. It would always be like, oh, you know, Vince, what am I doing? Then I would tell him what he's doing. Then he would talk to me, much like The Rock, you know, always trying to make everything he was doing better, because that's just how he was, man.
It sounds to me like there's two kinds of people, right? There are these people that are regular people trying to find their way in this crazy ass industry. And then there's the people that are the industry.
That's it. That's exactly it, Matt. That is the dynamic.
Well, let's talk about one more person before we get to our Twitter questions. There's lots of Twitter questions. And that is Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is the guy, once again, the top star in the company, who was brought in with all this, as you would say, pyro and ballyhoo, and he was the guy. And now he has to really, and also TNA was kind of developing this reputation of having these, probably something you didn't love, but these great matches, you know, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, these great matches. But Kurt Angle was the guy on top. All of a sudden, there's no way he's not being marginalized. Where was Kurt Angle at this point? What were the discussions you had about what his place would be in the Hogan regime?
Very, very Sting-like. Through all the years, I really, really believe, without a shadow of a doubt, I admired Kurt Angle the most. Him and Steve were the two realest people as they get. So among the chaos, Kurt would go sit in the green room, get ready for the match, never say a word.
What was the reaction to the ratings when they came in at first?
Dixie was over the moon with that first rating, whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was. I don't know. But I do remember she was over the moon with that first meeting. And in the back of my mind, Matt, I'm saying to myself, you're not going to be able to afford all these people. I mean, we're not going to be able to continue this type of a show. You're not going to be able to afford it, which is what I originally thought.
Real quick, what were your interactions like with Hulk? How often did you talk to him? How often did you see him? What kind of feedback did you get about the work?
Bro, when I was one-on-one with Hulk, there was never an issue. Never. And I enjoyed those one-on-ones with Hulk. I had the same respect for Hulk Hogan that I had for freaking Ric Flair. Like, when I saw these guys, like, I lit up. So every conversation I had with Hulk one-on-one, never a crossword, never an argument, nothing. There was one situation where I really got pissed off. They were going back and forth with me all week of what they wanted to do in the match. Okay? And they're talking all week of what they wanted to do in the match. But the pecking order was Kurt and Sting had to go over their match with Hogan. Okay? Now, bro, Kurt and Sting are at the building at 12 o'clock. They're in the green room. We probably got like a 6 o'clock start. Literally, Sting and Kurt Angle are waiting in here hours and hours and hours for this guy to show up. Finally, bro, he walks in about an hour before the show starts. And it's me, it's Kurt, it's Sting, it's Hulk, it's Dixie. So now, bro, Sting and Kurt, they lay out their match in detail. They've been working on it for a week. Freaking Hogan doesn't like it. I literally said, F this, and I walked out of that room because it was so freaking disrespectful to two of the greatest freaking guys and two of the greatest human beings that ever set foot in a ring. I just wound up walking out, and it was a big blow up that day.
The end result, of course, is that Sting and Angle have to do what Hogan wants, right?
I got in a blowout with Dixie that day. If we got to be at the building at 12, Everybody's got to be at the building at 12. You don't freaking walk in at the 12th hour and turn the apple cart upside down. If we're all in this, we all need to be in this together. And I literally got in a shouting match with her.
Had you reached that point you had reached with WCW where you said, it is time for me to go?
Yeah. Here's where it came to a head. Bret Hart was available and out there. He had not made amends with Vince McMahon yet. He had not appeared on WWE television yet. Jeremy Borash and Bret were very, very, very close. Okay. I was a huge fan of Bret Hart's. I had all the respect in the world for Bret. I love Bret to this day. So I had the idea of, let's see if Bret wants to come in as the general manager. You know, we're on board. You know, Ed's on board. Everybody's on board. We pitch Eric. Okay. Eric is 100% over the moon into the idea. So now that Eric is into the idea, we pitch Dixie. Dixie loved big names working for her. She loved being Sting's boss. She loved being Kurt's boss. Now she could be Bret Hart's. She loved that. She loved that. Loves stars. So now Jeremy hooks me up with Bret, a phone call with Bret. I talked to Bret about 2 hours. And like Bret's in. Like, I call Dixie and I say, Dixie, Bret's willing to do it. And, Dixie's going to give Bret whatever he wants. That's what happened. So, bro, we're all gung-ho. Great. Now Dixie's just got to come to a monetary agreement with him, yada, yada, yada. Well, Hulk Hogan played his creative control card with Bret Hart. He did not want Bret Hart working at TNA. Supposedly, Bret Hart said some bad things about him on social media, whatever the case may be, but he made it clear he's not working with him. So Eric relayed that information to me.
Who told you this?
Eric.
Eric said Hogan does not want Bret here.
Will not work with Bret, period, end of story. That's it. It's over. Freaking Dixie gave him the creative control card. I'm not going to be hot at Hulk. Right. He's got the right to play that card.
Absolutely.
So now we meet with Dixie, and now Eric starts telling Dixie all the reasons we shouldn't use Bret Hart, but says nothing about Hulk Hogan and the creative card. And now he starts cutting down Bret. Bret doesn't look like he used to. Bret's broken down. Bret could never cut a promo. I worked with Bret at WCW. He never drew a dime. And now I'm getting upset because I love Bret. So now I'm taking objection to this. And I'm there. And I just said, Eric, you're full of shit. Freaking Hulk is playing his creative control card. He doesn't want Bret here. You're not saying that because Dixie's pissed off. Dixie wants Bret here. You don't want Dixie to be mad at Hulk, so you're coming up with all these freaking lame brain excuses why Eric shouldn't come here when you already agreed to him coming here. It's bullshit. Just say Hulk's playing his creative card.
Did you say that out loud?
Yes. I consider Bret Hart a friend. I worked with Bret Hart for many years. I'm not going to stand around when you talk shit about him when the bottom line is Hulk Hogan doesn't want to work with him, so he's playing his creative card. All you have to do is say that, Eric, and we're fine. That's all you got. Don't be cutting down Bret.
It reached a point where you just wanted him to say it.
Dixie has to call her lawyer in. And now there's a big powwow at Universal Studios the day of a show. It's me. It's Dixie. It's Conway. It's Dixie's lawyer. It's Eric Bischoff. Matt, for the life of me, I can't remember if Hulk Hogan was in that room or not. I can't remember.
And the lawyer's brought in because you're still trying to get Bret Hart in, or?
No. Dixie's got to make peace between me and Eric.
So now to make peace between you two, she brings in a lawyer to help mediate the situation?
All of a sudden, Eric Bischoff turns around and somehow or another, he segued himself into a conversation of all the things I ever told him about Dixie Carter in private.
And
yes.
you're in a heated meeting where you feel
yes.
his back's against the wall, so
yes.
he has to resort to this to turn the conversation
yes.
around against you.
I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I've never seen anybody master that art like this. Right. We're dealing with a very insecure woman.
And she went for the bait.
She went for the bait. Here's how I know she went for the bait. She literally turns her chair and aims it at me, and the conversation now becomes between me and her about things I've said about her on a business level.
And since she went to bat for you to stay, with Hogan and Bischoff coming in, probably arguing that you should go, she probably feels a lot of betrayal, and now she's probably more on Team Bischoff than she is on Team Russo.
But here's the good thing, Matt. Here's the good thing. Everything I said to Eric, I had said to Dixie. Like I had said nothing to Eric that I would not have said to Dixie.
But she's still upset that you aired this stuff.
Yeah, so when Dixie started, well, is that true, Vince? Did you say this? I said, yes, Dixie. Yes, Dixie. I said that, but I also said that to you. I said those things, but they're truthful. And you and I had many discussions about these things. Well, bro, like I swear to God, I think it was a year ago, Eric talks about a meeting where I was caught in a web of lies and I wound up crying in the meeting.
Saying that you cried in a meeting.
Yeah, on an interview. I cried in that meeting, which is like absolute bullshit. Now Eric and I are at the point of no return. Now to me, bro, what I just saw, you are the lowest form of human being I've ever met in my life.
You know, you're done with him because he's broken your confidence.
That's it. We're done.
And he's trying to make you look bad. He's in a losing end of an argument, so his resort was really do everything I can to ruin Vince Russo in the eyes of Dixie Carter.
Right in front of my eyes. Man, now it gets interesting. You're going to love it because you know the players.
Right.
These are the things we never talk about. Ed leaves. So that leaves a void because Eric doesn't do any of the freaking grunt work. I need help.
And who comes in?
I know Bruce Prichard is sitting at home. I know he can't find a job. I know he loves the wrestling business. I know he's got 2 kids. I know his wife has cancer. And I know Bruce Prichard was my mentor. Bruce needed help.
But
so
at the same time, you think that Bruce is someone who could come in and really help out as well.
Well, I called Bruce and I said, Bruce, I need help really like in the producing end. Vignettes, pre-tapes, stuff like that the day of.
And those of you who know Bruce Prichard, as you know, I know Bruce Prichard, and behind me is a cartoon of Bruce Prichard. He's someone who's been important to me in my career. But Bruce really hangs his hat on the producing thing.
He's the best I ever saw. Matt, he's better than me.
And to this day, you hear things from guys like Filthy Tom Lawler. You hear things, a lot of the guys with MLW to this very day about how helpful and how good Bruce is at production.
The best producer I ever worked with. Better than me.
But it's a perfect situation because of what's going on in his life, how he was let go, which is their story to tell from WWE. And now you give him a call. What did you talk to Bruce about?
I also forgot a very minute detail. Well, I don't know if it was between JR and Hogan and Eric. I don't know the timing. At one point, the conversation turned to Paul Heyman. I initiate phone calls with Heyman. I have maybe 3 2-hour-long phone calls with Paul Heyman. I'm all for Paul Heyman coming in and working on the creative. I'm all for it. So the next thing I know, I set up a meeting with Paul Heyman and Dixie Carter. This is where Dixie, she made a lot of really bad decisions. This may have been the worst. Dixie Carter sends Paul Heyman to have a meeting with the big wigs at freaking Spike by himself. And when she told me that, I'm like, Paul Heyman is going to sit there and convince freaking Spike He should be running TNA. You don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. Like he is the best worker. Do you just know what you did? So I don't know what came out of that meeting, but I do know two things. Okay. Number one, Paul Heyman, for whatever reason, was not working with the company.
Yeah, that didn't happen as a result of the meeting, right?
And number two, after all these years, bro, Spike now decides we've got to have an executive producer on TNA. There's got to be an executive producer. Okay, now we've got to have an executive producer. And who do I suggest the executive producer is? Eric Bischoff. Eric knows a lot about TV. So is he the best qualified for that job? Yes. Is he going to bury me to Spike? Of course he is. I know he is. But what am I supposed to do? Am I not supposed to give the best advice I could give to the woman who's paying me? So we get back to the Prichard thing now. I want to bring him in as a producer because he's the best out there. He's just coming to TVs. He agrees to a deal with Dixie, this and that, blah, 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 blah. He comes to the TV. Matt, I know exactly what Bruce is going to do. He's going to do exactly what Paul Heyman did. He's going to get in there. He's going to work Dixie. I know what he's going to do. The first TV, every time I turn around, there's Bruce and Dixie. There's Bruce and Dixie. It's happening before my eyes. Bruce is jockeying for position. I don't think there was anybody easier to work than Dixie. Because she wanted that savior, Matt. She was constantly in search of that savior. I'm saying to myself, Bruce Prichard cannot help himself. This is what Bruce does.
Yeah, but also the easiest mark in America.
Yes.
And also, she's dealt with someone maybe who didn't treat her as well with Jeff Jarrett. And now she's gone through this Hogan and Bischoff thing. And, Bruce is a friendly smile and a friendly guy, and he's
from Texas. He's from Texas,
so
bro.
Different from an Eric Bischoff and so different from a Vince Russo. He really knows how to say the things you want to hear, and also makes you feel like a friend. Makes you feel like you're
and he's from Texas.
Right. Bruce Prichard really ingratiates himself to Dixie Carter.
That week, I am called into Dixie's office. Bruce is sitting on the couch. And Dixie now tells me Bruce Prichard is my boss. Keep this in mind. Bruce wrote the mid-90s shit with Mantar and T.L. Hopper and The Goon and all.
That's not all he did, but he did do that.
I more or less replaced Bruce in that capacity. So now, but now somehow I'm sending my scripts to Bruce for approval. So now, bro, here's what's happening. I'm sending my scripts to Bruce. Bruce is putting his comments on the script.
Sure.
Coming back to me, I'm incorporating Bruce's comments.
And Bischoff's out of the loop at this point?
I send it back to Bruce.
Right.
Bruce sends the show to Bischoff.
Got it.
Bischoff makes his comments, sends the show back to Bruce. Bruce sends the show back to me. Now I have to filter in Bischoff's comment. Bischoff, the guy I replaced creatively at I replaced both these guys creatively, bro. And now my shows are going through them. Okay, I'm going to tell you this though, Matt. To be honest with you, Bruce wasn't a dick about bouncing it back, and Bruce was very timely. Bruce wasn't redlining it, and Bruce wasn't like adding and taking things out just for the sake of adding and taking things out. Bruce, we never had a problem, with the suggestions of Bruce, because Bruce seemed like, listen, I know Vince can write. I've worked with Vince. I know him and Matt are working hard on the shows, and I just want to move the process along.
Right.
But now Eric is coming back with all these red lines with no suggestions, just crossing stuff out, blah, 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 blah. So now he's basically saying, I don't know if he even realizes it at the time. Now he's basically saying, both Russo and Prichard have no idea what they're doing. And keep in mind, Matt, we're against the clock. Right. And that was the thing. Bruce was very timely. Bruce knew, we got to get that show back. Eric took his sweet time. Whenever he got the show back to us, it got to the point of being so ridiculous. That's when I left. I got a lawyer. And, Dixie, wanted to meet with me, wanted to have a sit down. What is it going to take? And I never had a conversation with her. I told my lawyer, no, get me out of the deal. There's no sit down. There's no discussion. It's over. Do whatever you have to do to get me out of the deal. And that's what he did. And I was done with TNA. So now when we get to the next TV and I'm getting to talk to Bruce for the first time, okay, I get him outside in a hall, bro, after a production meeting, and I basically said to him, I'm like, bro, how could you do this to me? And Matt, at this point, I'm tearing up. And I'm choking up. See, I got no problem saying if I'm crying over something, I'm going to tell you I cried because I was so hurt. And, Bruce right away, Vince, what do you want me to do? That's what she wanted. Yada, 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 yada. And I was like, Bruce, come on, man. I've known you for 20 years. I know how it went down. I said, but at the end of the day, like, I got you a job, man. I was helping you out. I brought you in here. And it was not long after that, bro, a matter of weeks where I gave my notice and I was out of there.
You've said that the reason that Bruce was brought in, it was your idea. You felt, number one, he could help, but also number two, you knew he was available. You also knew he was a bad place and he could use the work. Was Bruce aware of, grateful for, did he acknowledge the fact that you helped him out by getting the job, or did he think in his mind he got the job because it was something they needed, that they needed Bruce Prichard?
No, because I created the spot, Matt. It's not like there was a spot open. I created the spot, and my idea was let me kind of sneak him in where he just goes to TVs. She's not going to have to pay him a lot of money. That was the key thing. Because I knew she can't afford to pay anybody. I knew it. So I'm like, let me get him in the door. Let me get him in as a producer to help me out where it's not going to cost her an arm and a leg. Let me just get him in the door. And at the beginning, he was very appreciative. Matt, I got to say something, and I really want to make sure, I know we got to edit some of this stuff up for time reasons, but I want to make sure this gets in the show. Matt, when you talk about three guys that we brought on this show, you talk about Eric Bischoff, you talk about Bruce Prichard, you talk about Jeff Jarrett. These were guys that were all ingrained in the wrestling business at a very, very young age.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And like you said, old school, bro, jockeying for position. You're trying to get power by any means necessary. It was the nature of the beast, the business that these three guys were brought up in. So every time I dealt with Jeff, Bruce, and Eric, I knew there was an agenda. It was always their gain. They were always doing something to gain more power, more money, more leverage. That was their game because that was the roots of who they were. They weren't necessarily bad people. But in a way, being in the wrestling business for 20, 30 years, it made them a certain way. And that's why, I dealt with it with Jeff. I dealt with it with Bruce. I dealt with it with freaking Eric. Now, we also talked about Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was not in the wrestling business. He did not get in the wrestling business when he was 16 years old. Kurt Angle lived a regular life, and because he was a successful Olympic gold medalist, he got in the wrestling business just like I did. I had a normal life. I was a fan of the wrestling business, but then I chose to make wrestling my profession. But when you're talking about the Hogans and guys that have been in the business forever, you can't trust anybody. So everything they're doing, every move they're making, every decision, every word out of their mouth, there is an agenda to. And you've got to realize that, or else you're going to get killed.
I understand that. Of course, Bruce got into wrestling at an extremely young age, selling pictures and programs. Bischoff worked his way up through the AWA. And of course, we all know Hogan's history. And of course, Jarrett is the son of a promoter, the grandson of a promoter who grew up in the wrestling industry. Your situation is very different. You knew what you were in for working with Jarrett, Bischoff, Hogan. But with Prichard, why were you so upset and disappointed if you knew it was coming? Did you expect better? Did you expect a little bit more loyalty, friendship? Were you surprised at all? Because it doesn't make sense that you would be upset with all that you're saying.
When Bruce and I lived in Connecticut, me and my wife, him and his wife, we went out together. Bruce brought me and my wife to the city to see Grease, to a great dinner. Bruce footed the bill. Bro, we went over Bruce's house for barbecues. Bro, I really, really felt Bruce was a friend, and I was always very, very thankful of Bruce because he mentored me. And I guess I genuinely liked Bruce. I genuinely liked him. God, it was like, Bruce, like, man, can we get past, like, when do you get past the wrestling bullshit and friendship take a precedent? Doesn't happen in wrestling. The guy I was closest to more than anybody was Jeff Jarrett. Bro, it wasn't a friendship. Jeff used me when it benefited him. That's when Jeff was my friend. That's when Jeff was my buddy. When all of a sudden I was in a position that I could not help him, I was not Jeff's friend anymore. I didn't want to believe that, bro, because I wanted to believe, can we have genuine friendships in this business? That's what I wanted to believe.
You felt the friendship was bigger than the work.
No, I wanted it to be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, Matt? I never felt it was. I wanted it to be. I got into that same situation with Vince McMahon. I was working so closely with Vince McMahon, I started feeling almost like a son to the guy. And I really cared about Vince McMahon and his family. I really cared about them. And I remember one day I'm wondering if Vince gives a shit about me. You know what I mean?
It's always
Matt,
a hard moment, right?
I asked him. And I said, Vince, I said, forget business. I said, like, on a personal level, like, you know, do you give a shit about me? Bro, I swear to God, this was Vince McMahon's exact words, and this tells you everything. He turned around to me and he goes like this. He said, I love you, Vince. You have to love somebody when you work that closely with them. So in other words, it was like, I love you, Vince, but I only love you because we work so close together. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like the way he said it and the words that he used, I walked away from there saying, this guy doesn't give a shit about me.
Right.
It was so phony and so ingenuous. I could sit here and genuinely tell you, I loved Bruce. Okay. I knew how he was. I loved him. I loved Jeff. I love these guys to this day, but you can't get past the wrestling bullshit with them, man.
At what point did Jarrett come back during the Hogan? At what point?
Yeah, bro, and that's another thing, Matt. I brought Jarrett back. You know, I had to do whatever I could to politically get Jeff back. Him and Eric hated each other more than Eric and I hated each other because Eric's got the power now. Jeff's got no power. So when Eric's the one saying, oh, we need to take this show on the road every week, this and that, and Jeff is saying, no, bro, that's going to kill us. We can't afford to do that. So I bring them together with Dixie. Eric's pitching about how we need to go on the road every week and get out of the impact zone. Jeff's saying, no, bro, like, we can't afford to do that. That will kill the company. Dixie winds up, you know, agreeing with Eric, okay? And what happens? Jeff's pissed at me. I'm just trying to keep you here. I'm not freaking agreeing with Eric. This has nothing to do with me. After I get him in the door, he's the redheaded stepchild. He's freaking taking it out on me.
What was his position at that point? Was he coming
he was a talent.
Or was he
a talent? He was a talent. And I was trying to get him more involved.
With Jarrett in there, Bischoff in there, Dixie in there, you in there. It sounds, this is the Hulk Hogan show, but it sounds like he was the least involved of anybody. Is Bischoff the consigliere and Hogan?
Yeah, 100%. Now, I got to tell you this though. When we were not at TV, I don't know the the relationship between Dixie and Hulk. Like, I don't know how often Dixie was talking with Hulk on the phone. I have no idea of what the dynamic was at TV. But I could tell you Hulk was not getting himself involved in all this shit. When Hulk and Eric first came in, their intentions were good, and they really believed that they could make a difference. And they were in the game 100%. When it became evident to them that, you know what I mean? Like, bro, like this.
It's not happening.
When it became evident it's not happening, okay, Hulk pulled himself out of the situation, and Eric ingrained himself more, meaning I'll be the executive producer. Let me get Spike's ear. Now he started looking at it from a personal point of view. Okay, what can I gain now? How can I come out of this stronger?
You weren't there, but the Hogan regime comes to an end on screen with Dixie Carter begging him to stay.
And why was that?
Hands wrapped around his legs.
Why was that, Matt? Why was that?
I'm not sure.
Bro, I told them when they came to me with the creative control, guys, don't give him as much money as he wants. Give him whatever. I'm telling you, this is a huge mistake. So, bro, what did Hulk and Eric do? On the way out, they made Dixie Carter look like the biggest possible idiot they possibly could. That's I was watching that on TV, and I couldn't help but say, Dixie, I hope that creative card is working for you, because you look like a bumbling, stumbling idiot. Regardless of them breaking the bank and helping them put TNA, and that helping put TNA in the position it was in, they were going to humiliate her going out the door, and there wasn't a damn thing she was going to be able to do about it.
But at the same time, from Dixie's standpoint, it was a shoot, right? I mean, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, absolutely was. Absolutely was.
One question we had from Twitter, of course, follow us at RussoCoonTWC. And this is from David Hart, who's at DBH1982. How does Mr. Russo feel about Hogan to this day? How do you feel about Hogan right now?
I love Hogan. I love him. I hate that any of that shit ever happened that Bash had to be. If Eric was not involved, it would not have happened. I know it wouldn't have. The time I got to spend with him at TNA was one-on-one was great. Never had an argument with the guy, one-on-one, face-to-face. Never had a disagreement with the guy. I was thrilled for him when he came back in, because I know that's what he wanted, and I know that made Hulk happy. I am a 100% Hulk Hogan fan.
Now, since you kind of brought it up, and people are going to want to know, and you're someone who's not afraid of saying what you feel, where are you at with this Hulk Hogan being taped, saying racial things, and his return?
I mean, bro, when I heard the things he said, I was like, I don't know, like, how you're ever going to be able to overcome this. Like, it was freaking bad. Like,
to be clear, you've never heard Hulk Hogan say anything like that?
No, hell no. Never heard him say anything like that. Never saw him treat anybody differently. Absolutely not. 0, 0, 0.
As you said, it's a hard thing to get over, but for me, it's a hard thing to even conceptualize someone saying stuff like that.
Bro, I'll never forget one of the greatest meetings, bro. One of the greatest moments with Hulk was, bro, we were in a meeting, and we're talking about a match, and Jeff Hardy was involved in the match. And, bro, when Hogan gets excited about something, the one thing you'll notice about him, like, he'll get very wide-eyed. Right. You'll see the wide-eyed in the old brother. He'll get wide-eyed.
Like the real Hulk Hogan, right?
Yeah, he got wide-eyed in the trailer that day when I laid out the freaking scenario of, bro, this is what we need to do. He was wide-eyed. He liked it when I was done, okay? But I'll never forget, bro, we're talking about, and he gets wide-eyed, and then he goes, bro, in front of everybody. Yeah, bro. And then Jeff Hardy will go up to the top of the rope, and then Jeff Hardy will hit him with his finishing move. You know that wonton thing, bro. He called it the wonton, bro.
Hogan did?
Hogan, bro. Everybody at that moment in time, everybody in the room just stopped and looked at each other like, bro, we all wanted to just freaking bust out laughing, but like you couldn't do it because like it was Hulk Hogan, and he had no idea like what the freaking move was called. But I'll always remember that, bro, because that was priceless.
Yeah, just hit me with that wonton, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
More questions from Twitter. This is from a very interactive follower of the brand, as well as Russo Coon TWC on Twitter. California in Fury is at Crude and Tattooed. We talked about the Nasties earlier. Were there rumors of bringing in one Brutus Beefcake?
No, no. I was going to say not that I can remember, but I remember there wasn't. No, there was no talk.
From Joey Hinson at JoeyH44 on Twitter. The popular opinion is that Hulk and Eric fleeced TNA and then left the carcass behind. Is there a part of that rings true to you?
A lot of people say Hogan and Bischoff ruined TNA. They killed TNA. They did this. They did that. They did this. They did that. From a creative standpoint, they did nothing creatively to kill TNA. It was the money. It was the dollars and the cents. It was, them being 100% behind the Monday night fiasco. That was a huge blow and a big mistake. It was Eric really, really being behind, we need to take the company on the road, which cost them a hell of a lot of money.
What was a more a worse idea, a more impactfully bad idea, going head-to-head or on Monday night or going on the road?
I think they were equally as bad, bro. I think they were both two devastatingly bad ideas, bro. Both of them. I don't think one supersedes the other.
Is the story of the Hulk Hogan years in TNA the story of Eric Bischoff wedging himself back in as Hogan's consigliere and really getting back in the wrestling industry the way he wanted to be?
1,000%.
Well, that is a great end to this episode. It probably went a little bit longer than we expected, but we got everything we needed from the beginning to the end. Once again, this is Truth with Consequences, and of course, we've heard the consequences, but make sure to check out our brand new Facebook page. It's at Russo Coon TWC, Instagram as well, at Russo Coon TWC. But if you really want to interact with us, tell us what we're doing. We're very active on Twitter, and make sure you check us out at Russo Coon TWC. We have some awesome patrons that have signed up for our Patreon site. If you love this podcast, you're going to love the extended, large, extra large version. Plus, we have bonus shows. We have little gifts we're going to give you, and we have the video version of this show as well. And we're going to thank you one by one at some point very soon. But I think, Vince, we want to, without even promoting it, the amount of feedback and the amount of support we've gotten on Patreon has been fantastic, has it not?
Do you remember the old, when Steve Martin first broke into stand-up, do you remember the Steve Martin routine when he says, he opens up the show by saying, at this point, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. Thank you. He goes through but that's what that reminds me of. But phenomenal. Listen, I've been tweeting out, Matt. Let's just say it. Don't edit this out, Matt. Please. Let's just say it. Bro, to some extent, we've been blackballed. And my belief is, bro, there's a lot of dirt sheet writers that have a narrative. They want you to believe a certain way of Vince Russo. They want to paint Vince Russo in a certain light. So, bro, they're not going to promote the show. And here's another thing I take offense to, Matt. And I said it on the show yesterday. I promote these guys' shows every week on Castrating the Marks. On Castrating the Marks, bro, I promote every one of this. You could hear Meltzer on my show. You could hear Keller on my show. I promote their show. I would expect the professional courtesy back. But no, bro, no professional courtesy. So, you guys have stepped forward. You guys have said, listen, bro, you're not going to tell us who to like. We're going to hear what the source has to say. Then we're going to make our own decisions. You guys have done that. That's all that I can ask. And I really, really thank you for that. I really, really appreciate you. Keep your mind open. Listen to all sides. You're intelligent enough to make your own conclusions and your own decisions. And I'm very, very happy that the people that listen to our show have decided to do that.
I'm going to have faith in them that when we put out something that's newsworthy, that they will promote it. But I do know that they do not like Vince Russo. They are not looking to promote Vince Russo. To be fair, their reasoning, I think is the attacks and, from Castrating the Marks, available on the Realm Network. If you want to hear what we're talking about, it's where Vince takes the quotes from these guys and kind of lets them have it a little bit. But I think,
and man, let me substitute the word attack. Listen to Castrating the Marks, bro. There are no attacks. There are a lot of belly laughs. There are not. I would not categorize them as attacks, bro.
And hopefully we can get to the point where things aren't taken so much personally. But I think this is a great show, and it is true. We do need your help getting the word out. We have good numbers. We have awesome interaction, good Patreon members. But please help us get the word out, and let's break out of this bubble that we're in right now and get the word out that this is the podcast to listen to. Vince, a great show, Hulk Hogan and TNA. Next week, we're going to put the three topics that I think you might want to hear about the most, and you're going to decide which one. We're going to make it tough for you. So go ahead and tweet your answer. Vote in the poll, make your case, make your argument. What is next week going to be about? We got 3. Are you ready to hear what they are, Vince?
Go for it, bro.
Montreal. Now, with Montreal, we've heard almost all of it, but one thing that's interesting is how involved you were, and what are some things that people can come to expect, just real quick, if we're going to talk about Montreal next week.
Here's the most important thing, bro. Here's the most important thing that there are only 3 people in the world that can comment on, and that's myself, Vince McMahon, and Bret Hart. The creative meetings prior to, days before the Montreal Screwjob, Vince McMahon had a personal phone call with Bret Hart that he had me be a third party on. Bret did not know I was on that phone call. Vince wanted a witness. So people can say whatever they want to say. There are 3 people that were on that phone call days before that happened, and it was me, Bret, and Vince.
Oh, wow. It's going to be hard not to vote for that one, unless you want to hear about Bash at the Beach 2000. Of course, Bash at the Beach 2000 is kind of related to this episode because it involved Hulk Hogan. We've heard Bischoff talk about it. What are we going to get just a little bit of what can we expect when we talk about Bash at the Beach 2000, if the fans vote for that one?
The most interesting thing to me, and a lot of it, Matt, plays off of this show, plays off of, my how I feel about Hulk and how I feel about Eric. The thing that blows my mind about that can put the kibosh on anything Eric Bischoff says. There are legal documents online that anybody can go to. And, I've put out the link. So you guys can read the legal documents of what was said at the deposition, and it's all there. Anybody can read it. And if you do that, okay, see, that's the thing. Eric Bischoff doesn't count on people doing that. If you do that, you will see Eric Bischoff. There were 3 people in the trailer. Me, Eric Bischoff, and Hulk Hogan. 3 people. Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan have 2 totally different stories of what happened that day. They could not even get on the same page and agree to whatever the story was. If you go to the legal documentation, and Matt, let's if they choose this, let's make sure we give them that link. Absolutely. And they can read it, and they can see Hulk had a story and Eric had a story, and those stories did not match up.
And so here's the last one, and I'm going to implore people to not vote for this show because this will be the longest show ever. We're going to go through the entire history from the beginning in WWE to TNA to this very day, including legal maneuverings, tweeting, shoot videos, the whole thing, the whole history between Jim Cornette and Vince Russo.
See, Matt, I know what you just did there. What you just did there.
What's that?
The way you presented that one, you steered everybody in that direction, Matt. That's exactly what... Matt, you might as well be Dave Meltzer, bro. Listen, let's be honest. The way you talked about Bash at the Beach, you talked about the Montreal Screwjob, but when you got to this, you definitely drove people down that road, bro.
It's so interesting to me, Vince, because in starting to work with you, getting to know you, once again, having the viewpoints in the history I have from watching wrestling all these years and being kind of a recent addition to the dirt sheet world, the Cornette thing is fascinating. And I'll tell you why, because my interactions with Jim Cornette have been awesome.
Not anymore. Not anymore,
no,
bro.
He's going to block me tomorrow. But but there was one time at a WrestleCade, he was the only guy in the room. My son and I walked up. Couldn't have been nicer. There was another time I was supposed to go to a Prichard live show, and I couldn't go. And Jim Cornette was there, and my good friend Dave Silva had Jim Cornette just give me a phone call. So my interactions with him have been pleasant, but everybody knows about your history. Give us a little bit about what we can expect if we're talking about next week, Jim Cornette and Vince Russo.
Well, I would really, really, really like to clarify the restraining order. Because, bro, of course, the dirt sheets. Oh, yeah, Vince Russo's a pussy. He's afraid of Jim Cornette. Like, really, bro? Like, really? I would really like to clarify that, explain to people how, Jim Cornette's childhood friend, who he grew up with, who he was closer to more than anybody, actually called me and suggested that I do that based on private conversations that he had with Jim Cornette. And that was really the reason of me doing it. So I would really like to get into the details of that so people understand, why that was necessary.
All right, guys, so that's it. So those are our poll options for next week. Of course, make sure to tune in next week on Truth with Consequences. Vince Russo.